So if you know your scales, maybe your chords, and you know some jazz tunes, maybe even some licks, but your solos aren't quite sounding the way that you want to, then this video is for you, because in this video I'm going to share with you some pro tips on how you can make your solos sound more like jazz and maybe closer to the jazz musicians that you really admire. So here's the first tip. The very first tip is rely on target notes. So I want you to be thinking about target notes. Now, what I mean by this is for every chord, in this case, I'm going to use a D minor 7 chord. Okay. Every chord has got a root, a third, a fifth, and a seventh. So your target notes should be the third and the seventh. So in that D minor, if I play D minor in my left, I really want to be targeting F and C, the third and the seventh. Okay. So these notes really outline the quality of the chord. Okay, so the third and the seventh, those are my target notes. If I'm playing a G7, for instance, I will target the third, which is B, and the seventh, which is the F. So okay. If I'm playing a C major 7, I'm going to target the third, E, and the seventh, B. Okay, so the first way I would practice this is to actually simply play a chord and then its target notes, just the third and seventh. But you might realize that after a while, you might get bored because it's just two notes that I'm asking you to play. But it's very important to play those two notes just so that the sound really sinks deep into your ears and settles in there. One thing we could do just for variety is we could play some neighbor tones. So a neighbor is simply the note that's right next to it. So for a D minor 7 chord, for instance, that's the third, right? I've got a neighbor on top of that, which is G. So G is the neighbor of F. So I could play my target note, play its upper neighbor, but I could also play its lower neighbor if I wanted to. So I might go, okay, so I might play something like, oh. So I'm really targeting this note, but I'm playing the upper neighbor, the lower neighbor. Sounds nice. So I was targeting the third there. What if I target the seventh? That's the lower neighbor, right? So the B. The upper neighbor is. What if I play the third and the seventh together with their upper and lower neighbors? What would we come up with? Let's find out. That's nice. I like that. Okay, so I'm really targeting my target notes, which are the third and the seventh, but I'm playing around with my upper and lower neighbors. So that's just on one chord, and I think it's important to practice like that. The reason I've used the examples of D minor 7, and G7 in C major 7 is because they make a 2-5-1 progression in the key of C. So D is chord 2, G is chord 5, and then C is chord 1. So because I'm focusing on those 3 chords, I'm going to practice my idea. Well, I've already done it on D minor. I want to practice on G7. So on G7, I remember that's my 3rd right there. So here's the upper neighbor. There's the lower neighbor. There's the 7th. Okay, so let me play the 2, which is D minor 7, going to the 5. And let me just hear what this might sound like if I play the target notes plus the upper and lower neighbors. Let's see. I'll play quite simple to start. In fact, I'm going to play the 1 chord as well. Okay, so I've targeted the 3rd of my C. You might be wondering, what am I playing in my left hand? So I'm playing these things known as shells. When I'm playing a shell, instead of playing the full chord, I'll just play the root and the 7th. Okay, it gives me an open sound. First time I heard this was Thelonious Monk. In fact, Thelonious Monk's example, I've used this a number of times on my channel, where I heard Round Midnight, the intro, and I heard him just play these 2 notes. Again, I heard him playing 2 notes. So I don't like them. I love these voicings, these Monk voicings where he's playing the root and the 7th. Okay, so for my 2-5-1, I'm going to be playing those shell voicings. There are various types of shells, by the way, so this is just one of them. So that's what I'll be playing most of the time. So there, right? For me, that's already beautiful melodic playing, and it's really highlighting the notes in the chord, the target notes. The target notes really bring out the quality of the chord. No doubt that's a D minor. Oof. Okay, so that's tip number 1, and you can apply this to all sorts of chords or chord progressions. In my case, I applied it. In fact, the reason I like it 2-5-1 is because there are 3 chord types. There's a minor 7 chord, there's a dominant 7 chord, and then there's a major 7 chord. I could have done this to a half diminished chord, to a diminished chord, to my whatever. So any chord type, you can take your target notes, which is the 3rd and 7th, and then apply the upper or the lower neighbor. Okay, so that's the first tip. Let's go to tip number 2. So tip number 2 is to play small ideas. And it's interesting because usually beginners want to play long lines. But the truth is, long lines come from small lines. Okay, sometimes we just take a small idea and then we develop. Let me try and think of the simplest possible thing. I'm actually going to use 3 notes. So just C, D, and E. Okay, so let's suppose, from my complete lack of creativity, those are the 3 notes that I'm going to use. That's my simple idea, right? There's several things I could do to this. So number 1 is I can tell myself, what if I add just a note a half step below this? Instead of starting on C, what if I start on, see, I'm already, I've already got something even more interesting than I had at first, and longer. By the way, whatever tips I give you, I might apply them to the next tip. So we've done the target notes with upper and lower neighbors. So when I start adding things, I might go, okay, so I've made that longer. What did I do? I added a half step below. Well, this is coincidental, but I landed on the 3rd. It actually worked very well. And then I jumped to the 7th, played its upper neighbor, came back to it, and that really brought out the quality of the chord. So it was just 3 notes. If I really want to develop my idea, I might play this idea on different degrees of the scale. So I might have maybe, actually this is interesting. If I go, so those 3 notes actually make an interesting idea. What if I did what I did to the very first one, which is add a half step below this? What if I did that to the next one? The half step below D is D flat, so I might go, and then half step below E is, and then below F, I wonder what that might sound like. I'm just going to play maybe a 2-5-1 progression and see what I can come up with here. Okay, so I'm already hearing like an interesting beginning to my phrases. One of the things that actually makes this little idea interesting is that I'm not starting my phrase on beat 1 anymore. So I'm kind of thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1 and 2, 3, 4, and 1 and 2. So I'm starting on the end of 4, 3, 4, and 1 and 2, 3, 4, and 1 and 2, 3, 4. Okay, so you can take a small idea and then start developing. So I've given you one way to develop your idea. It's just to add a half step below. We could develop it by adding a neighbor tone to whatever note we play at the top there. What if I said, see, it's now longer. So by simply adding an upper neighbor, what if I added a lower neighbor? See, by just playing around with the neighbors, my small idea, my little line, seemingly insignificant line, actually comes to life, and I can start creating interesting things. So I'm just approaching my notes from half step below. I'm adding some neighbor tones every now and then. I'm targeting my target notes, which are the 3rd and 7th, and I think I'm more in control of my playing already by simply doing that. Let's see. See, so that's an idea to practice, and I would recommend you practice it first over just one chord like I did, and then over a simple chord progression like a 2-5-1. You could do this over a turnaround. You could do this over any chord progression of your choice, actually, and just experiment and see what sounds, see and hear what sounds come out. I'm sure you'll come across some very interesting things. All right, let's go to tip number 3. Tip number 3 is think of the chord tones. So first I showed you the target notes, so the 3rd and 7th, let's say in D minor 7, those are the important ones, right? But the other chord tones are A and D. So D, sorry, and F and G and A and C, those are the chord tones. And from those chord tones, the target ones are really the F and the C. But the D and the A, the root and the 5th, those are close seconds when it comes to choice, you know. So you want to target these. See, by just playing that note, that's quite acceptable. It really outlines the chord. Okay, so when you're playing, you want to make sure that you really outline the chord tones. In fact, what I played there reminds me of a Wynton Kelly lick that I heard him play, or a line rather that he played one time. He said, okay, something like that. It definitely started with simple chord tones, and then it moved on to something else. So they're definitely worth exploring and worth using. Okay, so don't be chasing after the cool stuff. It's really the basic stuff that good solos come from. Okay. If I'm playing a 2-5-1, I might play. Okay, so I hope you can see the chord tones that I'm adding to my improvisation. If I add some upper and lower neighbors to my chord tones, who knows what's going to happen here. What if I add a chromatic neighbor, actually? You start getting interesting things just from very simple ideas. So chord tones, definitely worth exploring. In my introduction, I was playing the chords for Fly Me to the Moon. So if I play Fly Me to the Moon in the key of A minor, my chords are A minor 7, right? So Fly Me to the Moon, and then to D minor 7, it's basically 2-5-1. Right. So I'm starting on an on chord 6, then I play a 2-5-1. And I'm really playing the chords so that you can see the chord tones. If I play the chord tones, in fact, let me start on chord 6. Okay, so just that first phrase right there, that sounded decent. If I start adding some neighbor tones, who knows what's going to happen here. In fact, no, it starts on 6, right? I keep forgetting that. Okay, so hopefully you can see that I was trying as much as possible to play nothing else other than the things that I've discussed so far in this video. Just my chord tones, my target tones, my upper neighbors, my lower neighbors, and that's all. And that already gives you control over your playing, and it sounds like you're saying something meaningful, something intentional, and something sensible. Let's now go to tip number 4. So tip number 4 is give yourself limitations. So one limitation I was giving myself in my previous exercises is I was saying, hang on, I'm actually just going to play this over one chord, or I'm only going to play this over a chord progression And then finally, I said to myself, I'll play this over a song, and I used Fly Me to the Moon. But you could do this actually with a topic. So you might say to yourself, I am just going to play with one rhythm. Okay, so here's a rhythm. What if I say, let's see, one, tiki da ta ta. Yeah. I actually wanted something that didn't start on beat one. So one, tiki da ta ta. One, tiki da ta ta. Okay. So suppose I'm playing a D minor chord, the D minor 7. One, tiki da ta ta. Right. I'm going to use any of the white keys actually, and just play that rhythm. That's my restriction. Just that rhythm. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So I've given myself that restriction, just that one rhythm over one chord. What if I said, let me do that same rhythm, but over a 2, 5, 1? What could happen? Let's find out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. 2, 3, 4. Okay, so this is really where storytelling begins, and where your solo really comes together, because you've got that rhythm and it sounds like one idea is connected to the next. What better way to connect them than to actually use the same rhythm? So you want to practice like this so that you really get that down. Ultimately, you will end up mixing up rhythms or using different rhythms throughout your solo. But what you train by doing this is the ability to create or to think rhythmically. Okay, so like there, I wasn't really thinking about the pitch. I'm thinking about the tiki-ti-ti-ti rhythm. That's all I was thinking about there. Right, so that's one that's really worth exploring. So try that out. Let's go to the next tip. The next tip is sing your lines first. Now, I've listened to a number of jazz pianists, and pianists in particular are quite guilty of this. All the great ones, I hear them singing what they're playing. Well, some of it doesn't really sound like singing, right? Some of it sounds like, I don't know, like a pig being boiled alive or something like that. Okay, so you hear all these sounds coming out of the pianist's mouth, and you're like, ooh, what's happening? You hear it from Bud Powell. Glenn Gould used to do it. Oscar Peterson does it. Keith Jarrett does it. I used to hear Wynton Kelly do it, and I'm wondering, what are these guys doing? But then I realized what they're actually doing is they're simply singing their ideas. Okay. The only thing is they're singing it as they're playing. So they sing what they're playing, or rather they play what they're singing. Okay. So the singing guides the fingers. So let's see if we can actually practice this. So I'm going to play a C major 7. I'm going to sing a line, and then I'm going to try and play or find the notes. I'm going to try and duplicate what I sing on my instrument. Hopefully I get this right, and I'm going to try and start easy. Right, so da da dee da dee ba doo da ba dee da da dee da be da bu da ba 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 doo da do do be dee bu dee da 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 dee bu da be da bu da. Right, so I am singing and then playing. Right, so that's quite useful for creating solo. So I started off with simple ideas, and then maybe they graduate. Well, I probably got a little carried away towards the end, but hopefully the point came across that it really helps if you can play what you sing. So sing first and then play, and it will be difficult at first. I actually don't even like the word difficult. It will be new at first, because I don't really believe in difficult things, but when something's new, it appears difficult. Once you've done it a number of times, it starts to feel easier and easier and easier. So just start off, even if you're singing just one note. Dee da da. And go on and on like that. You could even do this over a chord progression. So let's say I'm playing a 2-5-1. Okay, let's see. Dee da dee da da da. Da ba dee bo da. E ba bo dee da. Ba 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 dee bo doo ba dee da. Okay, so you can try that over a chord, you can try that over a chord progression, you can even try that in a song and see what you can come up with. All right, so actually that's the final tip. If you want more guidance on this sort of stuff, well, the first thing you can do is check out the Jazz Piano Fundamentals course, because it gives you a very solid foundation for playing in any style, and I actually think like any great jazz pianist that you admire, okay, I think those guys are great because they know these things, okay. So it's very worth spending time working on fundamentals. I'm talking about your chords, your chord progressions. I'm talking about learning how songs are put together. I'm talking about learning all your inversions. Okay, so you want to know all these things, harmonic formula for jazz. So the Jazz Piano Fundamentals course will really set you up for that. And the beauty is you can work at this at your own pace and by yourself. Okay, and then the second thing that's quite useful, depending on what level you are, is every now and then I offer a 90-day program. So please check out the links to these two offerings in the description and figure out which one works best for you. If you're not sure, I'm happy to do a Zoom call with you or an email. You can just send me an email and we'll make a plan. Hopefully you're already subscribed to the channel, but if not, please subscribe so that as soon as I put out a new video, you're the first to see it. And if you've got any questions about what I've covered, please feel free to put that in the comments. Give this video a thumbs up if you like what you see. And you know what? We don't learn by hearing and watching videos only. We really learn by applying these things. So I can promise you, can guarantee you that if you apply the ideas from here, sometimes all you need is just one new idea. If you apply them, you will see a transformation in your playing. So all the best and practice, 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 and I hope to see you in the next video.